According to the National Weather Service, the city of Seattle took in 44.67 inches of rain between October and so far in April, breaking another record for rainfall in the U.S. Meteorologist Mike McFarland, who works at the service's Seattle office, says it's the second consecutive year that the Washington city has topped the rainfall record for the 7-month period. McFarland added that the winter season in the Seattle area has seen back-to-back weather systems that are wetter and warmer than normal. The previous record was reportedly 44.52 inches of rain from October 15 to April 2016.
Hundreds of people died last year as swaths of the country of India were struck by drought amid temperatures as high as 51 degrees Celsius or 124 degrees Fahrenheit. The Indian Meteorological Department predicts that this summer will see an average temperature increase of 1 degree in some of the hottest parts of the country, which as of April we're already seeing highs of over 45 degrees Celsius or 113 degrees Fahrenheit. New Delhi, India's capital, hit 43.7 degrees Celsius on April 18th, the city's hottest day that month since 2010.
South Korea said on Monday it was in talks about holding joint drills with a U.S. aircraft carrier strike group. U.S. President Donald Trump called the leaders of Japan and China amid fears North Korea could conduct another nuclear test. Trump was due to call Chinese President Xi Jinping after talking with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe earlier on Monday. Reclusive North Korea said at the weekend it was ready to sink the U.S. aircraft carrier, which Trump had ordered to waters off the Korean peninsula as a warning to the north.
A Slovakia-based company unveiled its version of a hybrid car, but it might not be what you'd expect. On April 20th, Aeromobile showed its flying car model at the Top Marks Exotic Car Show in Monaco. The two-seat teardrop-shaped flying car has carbon fiber wings that fold out for flight. The company said it can transform from car to plane in less than 3 minutes. The model's top speed as a car is about 100 miles per hour, but Aeromobile said it can travel more than twice that speed as a plane. All of this can be yours for about $1.3 million, but you'll need to act quickly. The company only plans to make 500 in their first run. The company said the craft will follow both road and air regulations, but to fly, drivers or pilots will still have to have pilot licenses. Aeromobile said it will begin to deliver pre-ordered models in 2020. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Gabrielle Caldwell.
On Tuesday, automakers urged the state of California to ease its proposed regulations for self-driving. They said the state didn't respond to their earlier objections by making enough revisions to its planned set of rules for autonomous cars. During a public hearing in Sacramento, automakers called on California to drop some additional proposed regulations. They also want much of the oversight left to the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. However, safety and consumer advocates asked the state to adopt strict oversight. A San Francisco official said cities should have more local control. Many automakers have said they plan to start deploying self-driving vehicles by 2020.
Mohammed, Saddam, and Medina are just a few popular baby names now barred in western China's Xinjiang region. U.S.-funded Radio Free Asia reports the Chinese government is prohibiting parents from choosing names that have religious meanings and are often used by Muslims. A document entitled Naming Rules for Ethnic Minorities lists the dozens of banned names. Parents who deviate from accepted names reportedly risk having their children being denied education and government benefits. The move is the latest effort by the Chinese government to tighten the reins on religious activity and expression in Xinjiang, which is home to about 10 million Uyghurs, a predominantly Muslim minority group. Earlier this year, the government banned long beards and the wearing of veils. China sees Xinjiang as a source of Islamic extremism and terrorist activity. Uyghurs and human rights groups, however, say isolated cases of violence have been the result of government suppression and discrimination. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
A wiggly, ravenous caterpillar, one that doesn't limit its diet to naturally grown objects, can biodegrade plastic bags, a material infamous for the amount of time it takes to decompose. The 1-inch-long waxworm, also known as the honeyworm caterpillar, is no stranger to unconventional meals. It's usually found in beehives, munching away on waxy, goo-drenched honeycombs. Now, through a serendipitous discovery, it's clear that waxworms can also decompose polyethylene, a thin but tough plastic that is used across various industries, including in shopping bags and food packaging.
Researchers warn soothing your kids with food can lead to long-term unhealthy eating patterns. Parents who are emotional feeders can encourage emotional eating. The Norwegian-British study found that the habit is linked to weight gain and eating disorders. The lead author of the study said relying on junk food, desserts, and sugary foods for comfort can lead to overeating. Later problems such as bulimia and binge eating could even result.
An epilepsy drug harmed thousands of unborn children in France. France's National Agency for the Safety of Medicines published a report on April 20th on the risks of using the drug valproate. The findings suggest the drugs may have caused serious birth defects in up to 4,100 children. Birth defects linked to the drug include spina bifida and other physical impairments. The drug now comes with clear warning labels, but for many, this warning has come too late. The Telegraph said the drug was prescribed up to 100,000 pregnant women between its release in 1967 and 2016. Affected parents are blaming the French state and the drug manufacturer Sanofi, saying they knew about the side effects in the 1980s but failed to warn users about the risks involved. The next step for the French Drug Authority is to publish a study on neurological effects of valproate. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
On Tuesday, President Tayyip Erdogan told Reuters that Turkey would reconsider its position on joining the European Union. Erdogan said that the decision by the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe to put Turkey on a watch list was entirely political. He said he was ready to take the question of EU accession to a referendum since Turkey could not wait any longer after 54 years. Erdogan said, "One or two countries cannot keep the EU alive. You need a country like Turkey."
Reuters reports that 3 retired New York City police officers and a former Brooklyn prosecutor were arrested on Tuesday. They are being charged for taking part in a bribery scheme involving gun licenses. Federal prosecutors say that Paul Dean and Robert Espinel took bribes in exchange for approving gun licenses while they were working in the police department's gun licensing division. The bribes included cash, paid vacations, and expensive liquor. U.S. Attorney June Kim said that over 100 licenses were issued as a result of the scheme, including to people with criminal histories.
Nordstrom is selling yet another deeply perplexing item online, this time in the name of men's fashion. For $425, you can own a pair of jeans with fake dirt on them. The department store chain says the 5-pocket button-fly dirty denim pants, dubbed PRPS Barracuda straight-leg jeans, are heavily distressed and embody rugged Americana workwear that's seen some hard-working action with a crackled, caked-on muddy coating that shows you're not afraid to get down and dirty.
Fox News reporter and anchor Kelly Wright is joining a group of 12 current and former employees in a lawsuit against the network. The group is claiming they experienced repeated counts of racial discrimination and harassment. The embattled network has already fired its top-rated news host Bill O'Reilly and Chief Roger Ailes over sexual harassment claims. According to the new lawsuit, Wright, who has worked at Fox since 2003, says he was discriminated against because of the color of his skin, citing that the network has plantation-style management. Wright says he was repeatedly denied appearances on Bill O'Reilly's show to discuss race relations. The lawyers representing the 13 plaintiffs said, "When it comes to racial discrimination, 21st Century Fox has been operating as if it should be called 18th Century Fox."
Have you ever wanted to see a real live unicorn? One has been spotted in Iceland. Ready to see a picture? Ta-da! Now before you say anything, let me just point out that this creature really does have one horn, and it was named Unicorn by the owners of the farm it lives at. Alright, technically this is a sheep, not a magical white horse with glitter and rainbows. Erla Pori Olafsdottir found this special creature among the family's flock. His horns likely grew too close together and merged into one. Unicorn's owners say he was accidentally left out in the wild this past winter and was mistaken for a goat. But his endurance might pay off. Instead of heading to the butcher's block, Unicorn may get to live out his life at the Reykjavik Zoo. So what if he's a sheep? he's still closer to being a real unicorn than a colorful frappuccino is. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Camry Caldwell. One of Google's co-founders is leaping into the business of flying cars. On April 24th, a startup called Kitty Hawk released video of its new flying craft. The name Kitty Hawk likely references the place where the Wright brothers made the first controlled flights in a plane. The company, backed by Google co-founder Larry Page, simply calls their craft the Flyer. Kitty Hawk's mission is, quote, to make the dream of personal flight a reality. The company says the Flyer is an all-electric aircraft that is legal to operate without a pilot's license in certain parts of the United States. The craft is billed as a flying car, but it looks more like a jet ski on a spider web with pontoons attached to its base. Those pontoons allow the vehicle to fly over water. Kitty Hawk said the Flyer will be available to buy by the end of the year. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Camry Caldwell.
Tuesday, the Mexican Economy Ministry said it would immediately begin the process to take action against U.S. imports. The retaliation comes after a ruling by the World Trade Organization in Mexico's favor in a dispute over tuna. Mexico had complained to the WTO about U.S. tuna labeling rules that it said unfairly penalized its fishing industry. Mexico has now asked for retaliatory sanctions of $472.3 million, which have been planned to impose on imports of U.S. high-fructose corn syrup.
Somewhere between 50 and 80 criminals attacked an armored car company Monday night in Paraguay. They made off with millions of dollars, and authorities are calling it the robbery of the century. The robbers reportedly set fire to a dozen vehicles on the street to create a diversion. They then attacked the offices of Prosegur with dynamite, grenades, and automatic weapons. While initial estimates put the amount stolen at $40 million, Prosegur says it's at most $8 million.
Former President Barack Obama will reportedly rake in a lot of dough for speaking at a Wall Street conference this fall. Obama will appear at Cantor Fitzgerald LP's healthcare conference in September, for which he will allegedly be paid a speaking fee of $400,000. That payout puts Obama in the same league as former President Bill Clinton on the lucrative post-presidency speaking circuit. Fox Business Network first reported the story on April 24th, citing several senior officials at Cantor. While Obama has reportedly signed the contract, the company is waiting to coordinate with the former president before making a formal announcement. However, Obama can back out of the event if scheduling conflicts or other concerns arise. While President Obama was a vocal critic of Wall Street, regularly blaming big banks for the 2008 financial crisis. For Newsbeat Social from Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.
Drink diet soda? If you answered yes, then you'll probably want to hear this report. According to new research, people who drink artificially sweetened soft drinks may be at an increased risk of stroke and dementia. The study showed people who drank just one artificially sweetened soda a day were nearly 3 times more likely to have an ischemic stroke caused by blocked blood vessels compared to those who didn't imbibe. They were also almost 3 times as likely to suffer from dementia. Findings of the study were published April 20th in the American Heart Association's journal Stroke. The results, however, only drew an association between diet soda and higher rates of stroke and dementia. Researchers weren't able to establish a concrete cause and effect relationship. The study prompted the American Beverage Association to issue a response in defense of low-calorie sweeteners, saying they were, quote, safe for consumption. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
After repeated campaign promises to get tough on trade, President Donald Trump has moved to slap a roughly 20% tariff on softwood lumber entering the United States from Canada. NBC News reports that the issue is bringing back a long, smoldering trade dispute between the U.S. and its second largest trading partner. Trump explained, "People don't realize Canada has been really rough with the United States," before signing an executive order on an agriculture task force this week. The move also follows complaints from U.S. dairy farmers about a recent decision by Canada to change the way tariffs apply to some milk products.
In a letter on Tuesday, 9 former U.S. ambassadors to the United Nations warned Congress that cutting funding for the world body would weaken Washington's global influence. The letter urged Congress to avoid drastically cutting UN funding and to give the current U.S. ambassador and UN Security General time and space to reform the world body. On Monday, Trump told UN Security Council ambassadors that if the world body reforms how it operates, then the U.S. investment would be worth it.
The United States' top general in Afghanistan has accused Russia of providing weapons to the Taliban. General John Nicholson didn't provide evidence at a press conference in Kabul Monday, April 24th, but he said he would, quote, not refute it was happening. An anonymous U.S. military official also told Reuters earlier that day Russia was giving machine guns to the Taliban. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said, quote, we're going to have to confront Russia where what they're doing is contrary to international law. Mattis was in Afghanistan to discuss military strategy with President Ashraf Ghani and other senior Afghan government officials. The Taliban has gained territory in some areas of the country over the last year, and Nicholson recently told Congress he will need a few thousand more troops to assist Afghan forces. Mattis said Monday, quote, 2017 is going to be another tough year. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni. An environmental group filed a lawsuit April 20th against the U.S. government over revoking protections for wolves and bears in Alaska's wildlife refuges. The Center for Biological Diversity is challenging the constitutionality of the Congressional Review Act, which it says violates the separation of powers doctrine. The law lets Congress rescind federal regulations imposed during the last months of a previous administration with a simple majority vote. The act was used to repeal an Obama administration ban on several forms of hunting in more than a dozen federally owned refuges in the state. Last year, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services adopted regulations prohibiting the killing of wolf mothers and pups during denning season and making it illegal to shoot bears at bait stations and from airplanes. The repeal of the regulations earlier this month means hunters can now employ those practices. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
A young American boxer has won the fight to be able to wear a hijab when competing. Amaya Zafar has been granted a religious exemption from USA Boxing. The Council on American Islamic Relations, which has been an advocate of the teen athlete, made the announcement on April 20th. For over 2 years, Zafar has been requesting to compete in clothes that fit in with her religious beliefs as a Muslim. The USA Boxing Board of Directors say the religious exemptions will be included in an updated rulebook in June 2017. However, the exemption will only stand for Zafar in the US. The international rules have not changed. The International Amateur Boxing Association prohibits fighters from covering parts of their body. According to the association, the rule is in place for safety reasons. Zafar's first official fight wearing a hijab will take place on April 29th. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
More than a month after U.S. and South Korean officials publicly declared North Korea was ready to set off a nuclear bomb, and almost 2 weeks since analysts said North Korea's only nuclear test site, Punggye-ri, was primed and ready, no detonation has happened. With every nuclear or missile test, North Korea gets closer to its stated goal of developing a nuclear weapon that can be mounted on a missile capable of reaching the United States. Jean Lee, a global fellow at the Wilson Center for North Korean Studies, says that the test is imminent. A U.S. official says that the military had observed significant activity at North Korea's Punggye-ri nuclear testing site with a new digging effort at the tunnel entrance. The official said that this activity suggests a nuclear test is not imminent. Tests often come in somewhat predictable cycles, says Lee, timed to capitalize on geopolitics or to fall near holidays to take advantage of nationalist fervor. Most recently, North Korea conducted a failed missile launch on April 16th, the day after the Day of the Sun, the country's most important holiday. The first missile test after U.S. President Donald Trump's inauguration came when he was meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in February.
The U.S. has imposed new sanctions on Syria in response to a chemical weapons attack earlier this month that Western officials believe was ordered by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. On April 24th, the Trump administration issued sanctions on 271 people linked to Syria's Scientific Studies and Research Center, the government agency responsible for producing non-conventional weapons. The U.S. maintains that those employees were responsible for developing the chemical weapon, which killed dozens of people in a rebel-held province in Syria. The sanctions freeze their assets and prevent them from doing any kind of business with the U.S. Speaking from the White House on Monday, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said of the sanctions, quote, "The United States is sending a strong message with this action that we will not tolerate the use of chemical weapons by any actor." Assad has strongly denied he was behind the attack. For Newsbeat Social from Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.